From Tally to Cali.
It's time
to wake up.
Wake up!
Warchant.com is your ultimate Seminole sports source.
And this is Wake Up Warchant, presented by
Vitamin Energy.
The vitamins.
The energy.
Now here's Warchant.com's Aslan Hajavandi
and Corey Clark.
Wake up! It's Wake Up Warchant presented by Vitamin Energy. Coming up on today's show, hear Corey out, everybody. What if Florida State's just a decent team? And this is what they are. Do they have enough pieces to be a great team next year? And we get a full breakdown of the Pitt Panthers with Stephen Thompson of the Pittsburgh Post Gazette. Wake Up Warchant presented by Vitamin Energy, vitaminenergy.com. Works faster and longer. Energy with benefits. The energy lasts up to 7 hours. 260 milligrams, all natural caffeine, slow, steady absorption throughout the day. Body nourishing vitamins, accelerates your metabolism. It's just one little bottle. You shake it, you take it wherever you got to go. And use that promo code warchantbogo, warchantbogo, and you buy one, Corey, and then you get one free. It's so cool how they did that for everybody. Remember, one box has 12 shots in it, so you get 24 if you bought one box. And listen, your boy's like 6'1", 185 on a good day, and I take about a half a shot, and that gets me through the gym and a few errands that I need to push across the finish line. So you might not need to even take a whole entire shot, but give it a shot. Vitamin Energy, vitaminenergy.com, warchant.com, ultimate Seminole sports source. Come home, everybody, $1 for a week, and you get access to that 1-year subscription to The Athletic. Corey Clark joining us from his new abode, which really undersells the beauty and the majesty of his new home. Congrats, buddy. Can't wait for the next chapter of the show with you in a full-fledged, dedicated podcast space.
It's going to be awesome, buddy. I'm upstairs in what Stephanie has labeled my podcast room, but there's nothing right now to make it that other than a couch. So you'll come over here, you'll get it all set up, and maybe by the Wake Forest live show. I'll have a nice setup with memorabilia behind me and the whole works like you have and Gene has.
What about us getting back and recording face to face across from one another? Remember them days?
I feel like if we do that, we might as well video record ourselves,
okay.
Which we probably honestly should be doing anyway, but especially during football season. But yeah, I'm all for it. I'll give you the address. You can shoot on over here whenever you want.
Awesome. I want a key. Or can I get a key code?
Yeah. It's
okay.
It's 93.99 or 1234. There's a lot of them.
Yeah,
13. Yeah.
Get these smart locks these days that we've got at the house in Jacksonville. Like you can set a particular key code to only be active during certain hours of the day. So Abby's got a dog walker. They've got a code to get into the house, but it only works from like 1 p.m. to 3 p.m. So I mean, maybe you can do something like that for your boy Aslan. You know.
I'll give you the real code, man. I'm not worried about you murdering me. You're fine.
We're doing a live show tonight, 6 p.m., right?
Yeah,
okay.
That's right.
Just letting everybody know. So we got our guy from the Pittsburgh Post Gazette, Stephen Thompson, later in the show. Really good job, Corey. I mean, he went through, every single thing about the Pitt Panthers. So that's going to be very informational, educational for our listeners. And, maybe we should start doing the mailbag for the Wednesday program because it's tough on Tuesdays. We get an assistant coach and we usually get 2 players. We only got 1 player, and we got Chris Thompson, who's your tight end coach. He's also your deputy head coach. And listen, I take no pleasure in having to parse the words of somebody at a podium, doing either coach speak or just kind of saying what they're coached to say, right, Corey? I hate to pull something out and then make that into an entire episode. But it's also kind of my job, I feel like, to give us something to kind of talk about because I don't really know what there was newsworthy that was shared from Chris Thompson and Blake Nicholson, but I'll get to it here real quick. 2024 is always going to remain kind of a mystery to why it happened, how it happened. And I don't know if they can't get past Pitt and, there's a few more losses that lurk after that. I wonder if we'll have answers, surprisingly, for this season, even though we weren't at practice. Hearing Blake Nicholson say, and again, God love him, man. He was trying to explain a lot of things on his mind, but wasn't able to kind of maybe find some of the words, and that's okay, man. He's 21 years old, and he's not being paid $10 million to be the chief executive of a football program. He can have trouble communicating what's on his mind, and that's fine. I'm not criticizing him at all. But he did mention, Corey, something just about, I asked him about if they're close, right, to getting home to the quarterback, if they're close to affecting the quarterback at a more consistent level. And he talked about, he feels they are. They watch the film. It's a few things here and there. He says it comes down to the way they practice. He feels like you practice the way you play, which is not earth-shattering to anybody. But he did say, you can't be lacking in practice and then think you're going to flip a switch in the game. That's not how it works. I wonder if this team ultimately did get a little high on their supply, maybe start feeling too good about itself. But that's still extremely disappointing, Corey, because this entire time we thought that they'd have this huge chip on their shoulder and it would never fall off until maybe they're in Charlotte. But there's potentially that creeping in to maybe this little bit of a slump, if we want to call it that. At least that's kind of what I was able to extract from Tuesday's interviews.
Yeah, I didn't really extract that from him. I think he was just talking in kind of code words about, they're practicing hard because you're not going to play well if you don't practice well. I don't think he was it didn't sound to me like he was lamenting that they didn't practice well before Miami, or even Virginia for that matter. But that they intensity. I think he was even asked, Coach Thompson said you had a really good day of practice on Tuesday. Why do you think that is? And he's like, well, because we're trying to be intense because you bring the intensity, you bring the focus, all the little details, all the stuff we've been hearing. I don't necessarily think that it was like they just weren't practicing hard. There is absolutely a chance that going into that Virginia game, they did not take the 5 days prior to that game maybe quite as seriously as they needed to, or they just didn't come out focused that game, and that happens. But you had a bad fumble, you had a bad interception, and then you were just chasing things the rest of the night. And a quarterback that could play, and that didn't help. But there's also a world, Aslan, where it's just a pretty good team. I mean, right? Like, if you look at this roster, it's a pretty good roster. It's not great, clearly. It's not the best roster in the country. It's not horrible.
No.
It's a pretty good team.
Yeah.
And when you're a pretty good team, you're going to win some, you're going to lose some. If you don't play, I hate to break it down like that, but it's like I'm trying to think of an NFL team. The Jags. Pretty good team. They made a couple plays there on Monday night. Got a little lucky, I thought, but made a couple plays. Won the game. I think the Chiefs are a good team. They'll figure that out. But if you don't play well, you don't win. And I think that this team isn't good enough to get in, talented enough to get behind almost anyone left on the schedule by double digits and then expect they're going to come back and win. Like they got behind 14-0 and actually took a lead. And then they got behind 14-3, and that became 28-3. I just think they're a pretty good team that needs to play well in order to have a good season. But they are not an extra special talented roster. They are not an NFL pipeline this year. They've got some guys, but they are not an incredible roster. It's not an incredible football team, and so there's going to be some lulls, and they're going to lose some games. Let's hope Saturday was the last one. But do we really think that?
No.
They got another L on the schedule, right?
Minimum.
At least. But they're a pretty good team that should have a pretty good year. And then, we'll see what that means moving forward as you go into 2026.
Man, there's like two places I can kind of pivot towards. I guess, one is the question that we've asked a few times and we're going to keep asking ourselves. And then, like where do you go from here then? Like what's the optimistic view was, listen, you were 2-10 last year, go 8-4, then you have something to build on, and then we'll see what happens. I guess so then at the same time, but the standard though kind of changed after you beat Alabama to where you start thinking, okay, like maybe they are one of the 12 best teams, but now after 2 losses in which you turned the ball over 6 times, and not a lot of it was like forced. I mean, like the Virginia interception, the first one was pretty incredible. There was a fumble we had in that game as well. The last interception, whatever, was trying to win or trying to keep the game extended. Yeah. But I feel like that we're giving them a kind of an easy way out, but I don't want to be a jerk and be like, we need to hold their feet to the fire and hold them accountable. And the standard is the standard. But man, it seemed, through 4 games, even that Virginia game, double overtime loss on the road Friday night, first road game. Man, you're still good enough to end up winning like 9-10 games.
Sure. When
it's all said and done. But now that feels a little bit of a stretch, and we're kind of bargaining with, well, let's be honest now. Maybe they're not as talented as we thought they were. And I don't know. It falls a little bit strangely for me right now.
Well, I mean, I just think, look at college football, man. So Ira was talking about on headlines, like it's going to be hard for Florida State to have a super team, which just is loaded with NFL guys and a bunch of big money prospects. And I'm like, look around the country, man. What is a super team?
Yeah.
Is there one? Like, I know Miami has some good players. Miami needed a 40-something yard field goal to beat Notre Dame, who has not looked great this year. And they were up 13-7 on a 2-3 Florida team that has not looked great this year. Like, they played poorly at times too. Georgia has looked god-awful at times, and then also pretty good. Ohio State's offense looks pedestrian at best. Now, they've got a great defense, but that's only 3 teams I just named, or 4 teams. Like, I guess I would say this, like the top 12 teams in the country. Is Florida State good enough to get into the playoff? Are they talented? Do they have enough talent and coaching acumen to get themselves into the playoff? I wholeheartedly believe that. But
believed? It is past tense or believe? Present tense.
Believed. I think believed is probably the right word. Because here's the thing. They lost the Virginia game. Like if they'd have, and that was a coin flip, man. I know it was a 6.5 point spread, but that was a coin flip game where if you literally like one play goes differently, you win the game. Or 2 plays go differently, you win the game. And then you're sitting here right now 4-1, number 12 in the country. And you feel perfectly fine. But that's the margin. Like so
well, to your point, right? Because you're not supremely talented enough to where you can make mistakes and overcome them against a team that's pretty decent like Virginia. You're not 2023 Florida State where you can do that in the ACC
right.
and be fine.
Or like, if Ohio State misses that interception that Jerry Wilson missed, they don't allow a touchdown the next play. Maybe something like that. You know what I mean? They wrap up and they don't let the Virginia run for 200 yards or whatever it might be. Florida State doesn't have that margin for error, but they're absolutely good enough to play with anyone in the country. They've already proved it. But they're also susceptible to lose to almost any team left on their schedule probably. But that's the margin for error when you've got a pretty good team and not a great team. And you're playing capable, competent teams, which they will later on this season, some of them in tough environments. And I guess my overall point is Alabama might not lose again. Who knows? They probably will. I think they play like 5 more ranked teams, including this Saturday against Missouri on the road.
Yep.
I think it's a road game.
It is. It's in Como.
But, we saw that game. Florida State hung with them. Now, if Alabama played really well, who knows? But they didn't. Every team in the country is susceptible. There's not much. I would wager the difference between number 12 in the country and number 30 in the country is almost minimal. It's just how you play that day. Like, meaning somebody that's also receiving votes can absolutely beat the number 11 team in the country. Like, you're telling me you don't think Florida State, if they play well, can't beat Indiana? Or Missouri?
Yeah.
I just think there's not a lot of separation from these teams, and it comes down to playing well and not turning the ball over. But so anyway, me saying they're a pretty good team that has to play well, I honestly think you could say that just about every team in the country. Like Miami needed some breaks to beat Notre Dame, including an incredible touchdown catch on what should have been an interception. That's like a 14-point swing right there. And then a kicker that doesn't have a lot of experience just crushes a game, essentially a go-ahead game-winning field goal. That's where we are in college football. So I don't want it to sound like I don't think Florida State can win the rest of their games. They absolutely, for one game, they can go win it. You know what I'm saying? Like I wouldn't be stunned if they win at Clemson. Would you? As we sit here right now, I wouldn't be stunned if they beat Florida. I would be stunned if they won 7 in a row. That's the difference. But week to week, game to game, anybody can almost beat anybody. As we like to say, Aslan, any given Saturday. And that goes for this Saturday. Pitt can absolutely beat Florida State. And if Florida State comes unprepared or unfocused or undisciplined or unenergetic or sloppy with the ball, they absolutely can lose to a true freshman quarterback. If they play well and they don't turn the ball over, they could pummel Pitt. It's kind of I know a lot of people listen to this grew up in the 90s or became football fans in the 90s, And I know it was a lot of fun, and myself included, to know going into a game, man, they have no chance of losing this game. It's just a matter of when the backups come in. And that always was the case. It wasn't like Florida State was straight up getting upset every year. I mean, they just would steamroll teams. And that was fun, too. That was fun. But it does make it kind of fun not knowing how any of these games are going to go. I think that makes it fun, too. It's more like an NFL Sunday, where you don't know if the Titans are going to come back and beat the Cardinals. You don't know if the Patriots are going to beat the Bills in Buffalo. You can't really predict this stuff anymore. So play well, and you can beat anyone. But you lost your margin for error when you lost the Virginia game. You played 2 games that were pretty convincing. I think you beat Alabama convincingly. I think Miami beat you convincingly. It's those other games in the middle, right? That could go either way, that play on a few plays here and there. That Virginia game was one of them, and you lost them. So the next time you're in a close game that could go either way, you need to go ahead and win that bad boy.
So is this our lot in life now? Being
good question. Yeah.
Just is it because of NIL and maybe we don't have the resources to compete in that? Is it because the head coach maybe has some deficiencies that are hard to properly contextualize, or is it just the overall, landscape of the sport now where other than Kirby and to your point, Georgia's looked pedestrian at times this season. Just there's not going to be teams that are going to go on these crazy runs for 5-6 consecutive years, and we just need to kind of recalibrate that more so than anything else.
Not even that. I don't think there's going to be teams that are just dominant anymore. And so, yes, is it Florida State's lot in life? Absolutely. But I think it's everybody's lot in life, except, I guess, maybe like Ohio State. But, Alabama's playing a road game this week at Missouri. Who has more resources than Alabama? Who's paying their coach more than Alabama? I know Drinkowitz gets a lot of money. And Missouri has turned into a nice program. Alabama's a 3.5-point favorite in that game. To me, doesn't that kind of mean like a coin flip?
Oh, for sure, yeah.
3.5 points. So if Alabama goes and throws a pick 6 and they lose on a last-second field goal that's either made or they miss one, does that mean are their fans going to be like, is this just our lot in life? Does DeBoer suck again? Is that team overrated again? Is he on the hot seat again? That very well could happen. And Florida could actually have a pretty decent year and finish again with 6 or 7 wins. And they want to go chase and try to get the best. I guess there is a world where Lane Kiffin comes and he unlocks it, and they win 10 or 11 games every year. But even those games that they're going to win, what you want to be is you always want to be in contention. You always want to have the requisite skill and talent that if you play well and stay relatively injury-free, you can compete for the playoffs. I think Florida State is there this year. The problem is, will they be there next year? And what does it look like if they lose another game? Because they have no margin for error and no room for error now. So if they lose again, the playoff dream is obviously done, and then maybe that spirals into something a lot more severe. But right now, when you look around the country, take away the first 3 quarters against Miami, which, again, it wasn't like they were steamrolling you up and down the field. They hit big plays and you didn't. You turned the ball over and they didn't. They're better than you. But when you were watching that game, did it seem like Florida State didn't belong on the field with them? Because it didn't to me. I know the score was the score, but even if you take away the first 3 quarters or the entire game, you've watched a lot of football, Aslan.
Right.
Who are the great teams out there? Who are the teams that Florida State actually has no chance of beating? No chance of even competing with?
I don't know. I think they could. Yeah, they probably, if they play well enough. I mean, they're probably in a 4-quarter game with most everybody that's out there. Yeah, maybe. Yeah, but then the Miami game really was not a 4-quarter game. I mean, I don't think it was. I mean, Miami did blow them out. I know if it's a 6-point game can be a blowout, it was a blowout. It was the biggest 6-point blowout in the history of college football. But there is a world, right, where if Florida State wins out, and again, I think I put the percentages of that at like 20%. It's a big number, Corey. It's a big number.
I don't think that's gonna. I don't think it's probable. I don't think it's likely. It's certainly not impossible. But if that were to happen, and you go 10-2, and your 2 losses are double overtime at Virginia, and what at that point, just look at the schedule, man. It's a 6-point loss. Whether it was 28-3 or not, it counts as a 6-point loss. You're in the conversation, especially if Miami's 12-0 and number 1 in the country. There's no shame in those 2 losses. You have not suffered a humiliating, embarrassing loss. And I do really like the fact that they got down 14-0 on the road and did not roll over. They fought back and took the lead and then went back down the field with 2 minutes and tied the game to go to overtime. And then I like the fact that they didn't roll over and let Miami beat them by 45. A loss is a loss. I get it. But there is some stuff to like about the makeup of this team, I think, in that DNA where maybe if they could just – I just think if they could stack a couple of wins, they obviously have to win this game, and they have to beat Stanford, and they have to beat Wake. If they're 6-2 going into Clemson, well, if they win that game, which is eminently winnable, then you were right in position. I mean, if anybody would have said before the season, hey, going into that Clemson game, they're going to be 6-2, you'd be like, okay, all right, I can get behind that. It's just that we are talking on the heels of the loss to Miami in 2 straight losses because none of us were expecting a win over Alabama. So to your point, it did change the expectations. But, these seasons, I think, moving forward for the rest of our lives with any of these teams, especially in the ACC, though, where you don't get the benefit of stacking up like marquee wins, the rest of our lives are going to come down to these moments, man. It's going to feel more and more like the NFL. We're like, golly, the Falcons should have beat the Bucs in Week 1. They screwed it up there at the end. They let Tampa go down and score with a minute left or whatever it was. They didn't cover a Buka, or they missed a field goal. I actually think the Falcons missed a field goal there. It's going to come down to that stuff more and more and more, and it's just a matter of playing those moments well, because I think all these teams are going to be even enough, and there's going to be enough parity that, save for 4 games a year, the outcomes really could swing on a handful of plays or one drive or one 5-minute stretch, which I like kind of, and it also kind of sucks because I really did like the dominance of the 90s.
The dominance continues at the Corner Pocket Bar and Grill. Delicious food, ice-cold drinks, friendly faces. Come on out Friday night, Friday evening, Friday afternoon, 5 p.m., however you want to characterize that time of the day. Or should I say 5:30, Corey? Give you a little bit of a late arrival.
No, I think it'll be 5, but I did want to say this. I feel like anybody that's come to the last 2, there's been some live music going on that started at 6, which is fine. Corner Pocket's all about the live music on a Friday night, but as I told Bill and his compatriot Heather, it's hard to have a meet and greet when you're having to shout. So we pushed the live music back. I've been told that the live music has been pushed back till 7. And again, I say live music. It's not a full-on rock band. It's I think his name's Travis. Very good, by the way. He's a talented guy. I shouldn't say kid. A talented musician who sings the songs that I like. But it's just him and a guitar. So it's not like you're overpowered, but it is a little loud. So I got it to push back. I got that pushed back to 7. So from 5 to 7, we'll be there spreading cheer and joy.
Look at that. Corey Clark speaks, things happen.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe he's got another question up his sleeve he can ask Mike. Get another winning streak ignited. Keep our fingers crossed for that one as well. Bingo night Thursday, 4 rounds, $250 cash money up for grabs. Why don't you go check that out, too, before you come and hang out the meet and greet the following day on a Friday. The Corner Pocket Bar and Grill, 2475 Appalachia Parkway, cptallybar.com, the website. Let's talk about the Panthers with Stephen Thompson, the Pittsburgh Post Gazette, after this. Underdog Fantasy Sports. Download the app today. It's called Underdog Fantasy Sports. And sign up with promo code WARCHANT to score $50 in bonus funds when you play your first $5. Still waiting on some Florida State options out there, boys and girls. So I'll handle this one. We'll let Corey roll hopefully here in the next day or so. It's so simple. You download the app, you put in that promo code, and then you just pick individual players. Passing yards, rushing yards, longest rush, touchdown scored, things like that. Higher or lower, really simple. Do 2, do 3, do 5, do 8. You can do a standard pick'em where you'll get a huge multiplier, or you can always do the flex where you can, let's say, pick 4 players. And if you get 3 out of the 4 right, which in most cases is not good enough, over at Underdog it is. You'll get a little bit of a lesser payout, but you're still winning money. It's fun. All right, so let's give you folks some winners. Sam Levitt, quarterback for Kenny Dillingham's Sun Devils of Arizona State. They're playing at Utah. 182.5 passing yards. Let's go higher. That's a very small number. Baron Morton, quarterback for Texas Tech. They're taking on KU. We're going to go lower on 298.5 passing yards. We're going to go with Jalen Daniels, a quarterback for Kansas. We're going to say higher on 229 passing yards. And then I really didn't want to touch this game, but I wanted to get us to 4 guys so we could do a 10-1 payout because that's where the real fun is. Jackson Arnold, Auburn get-right game for Georgia, though, I think. Georgia going to Auburn, nighttime. Feels like Kirby, after that loss to Alabama, probably going to have them really, really angry. 173.5 passing yards. We're going to go lower. 10-1 payout. Put $10 on that one. It's actually like more. It's like 10.63. $10 on that would get you $106.30. Millions of fans have already won billions making picks on Underdog. Will you be next? Underdog, make picks, win money.
Underdog Fantasy Sports must be 18 or older, 19 or older in Alabama and Nebraska, 19 or older in Colorado for some games, 21 and older in Arizona, Massachusetts, and Virginia, and present in a state where Underdog Fantasy operates. Terms apply. See assets.underdogfantasy.com/web/play and get terms _DFS_.html for details. Offer not valid in Maryland, Michigan, Ohio, and Pennsylvania. Concerned with your play? Call 1-800-GAMBLER or visit ncpgambling.org. In New York, call the 24/7 Hope line at 1-877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY.
Welcome back. It's Wake Up Warchant, presented by Vitamin Energy. VitaminEnergy.com. Warchant BOGO, your promo code. Buy one, get one free. Let's talk about the Pitt Panthers. Let's go behind enemy lines. Such a weird thing we say when we talk about football, but we say it. We got Stephen Thompson joining us from the Pittsburgh Post Gazette. Stephen, I've lived in Florida my whole life, but I grew up a Pittsburgh Penguin hockey fan, so the Gazette still has a soft spot in my heart. We appreciate you joining us, man. Hope all's well in the Steel City.
Yeah, thank you for having me. Things are great. We're kind of hitting some fall weather up here in Pittsburgh, so I'm excited to get back into the 80s once I'm down in Florida.
Okay, yeah, all right, yeah. Welcome to Tallahassee when you do show up here. Let's kind of give some background to some of our fans here listening to the program. Just, Pitt had kind of hit their heads against the wall offensively a few years back, and then Pat Narduzzi brings in Cade Bell. They also bring in that transfer quarterback Eli Holstein. Things looked really good in the beginning of last year. But then from there, I guess pick it up after they start off 5-0, 6-0 last year until we get to the end of the backyard brawl, if you don't mind.
Yeah, they were actually, even got to 7-0. But yeah, that offense was humming. And then, they played Cal in, I believe, their 6th game of the year. And Branson Taylor, their starting left tackle, goes down. And it was the 3rd year in a row that Pitt had lost their starting left tackle to a season-ending injury. And things kind of snowballed from there. They were shuffling around on the offensive line. Eli Holstein wasn't nearly as accurate or as efficient as he was to begin the year. I think the book kind of got out on how to defend a Cade Bell offense. You leave a bunch of DBs back in coverage, play a lot of zone. You force Pitt to kind of dink and dunk its way down the field, and eventually they were going to make a mistake. And so that was kind of the same case at the beginning of this year. Last year they were dealing with injuries all over. It wasn't just the offensive line where they shuffled through about 6 different starting offensive line combinations in the last few games of the year, last 6-7 games of the year. But Desmond Reed, their star tailback, missed a couple of games as well. Holstein didn't finish a game healthy in the final 5 games of the year, I believe. So it was just kind of a confluence of a lot of things going wrong. And this year, they were supposed to be kind of set up for more success, right? They had a little bit more depth on the offensive line. You got Eli Holstein going into his 2nd year in the system, and you just expected things to be a lot more smooth than they were. And those losses to Louisville and West Virginia, games that Pitt really felt like they gave away. There were tons of penalties. Holstein, again, wasn't, super accurate all the time situationally, wasn't at his best. And they really fumbled a bunch of red zone opportunities as well. They were super dependent on big plays. So that ultimately led to a quarterback change. They bring in the true freshman Mason Heinschel, and, for at least a game against Boston College, who, if they're not the worst team in the league because they're still in North Carolina, they're probably the 2nd worst team in the league. But I think the process looked a lot better for Pitt. So, still trying to see if they can do it against elite competition, which I would consider Florida State at this point, some elite competition. And it's something they weren't able to do last year. They beat up on some bad teams, and now they're trying to figure out if they can do it against one of the better teams in the ACC.
Do you have any sense? I mean, I don't know how much media availability you guys have had, before that you and I got to sit here and talk about things, but Holstein's a starting quarterback. I think Cole Gonzalez was a guy that I think he might've been at Western Carolina with Cade Bell a few years ago. They try to put him in for a spark against Louisville. That didn't work out. Did Heinschel feel like a complete desperation move? Did they have a good feeling he might be ready? And what sort of spark do you think he's given his teammates and the staff after that performance against BC?
Yeah, I wouldn't say he completely came out of nowhere, but Heinschel was a guy that, they talked up in spring ball and in training camp as someone who was way ahead of where a normal true freshman would be. Whether that means that they saw him as a starter capable guy, right out of the box is a completely different question. Desperation, I think they had a lot of confidence in him, but the way I look at it is you wouldn't have gone to if Gonzalez or Holstein they believed were capable of getting them, to 8, 9, 10 wins, then those guys would have been in. But I think, even if Heinschel wasn't necessarily at their level yet, obviously it's a bit of a gamble going with a true freshman, but I do think it was more of a forward-facing look. I would have read going to Cole Gonzalez as more of a quote-unquote desperation move, just because he had been in the system. It seems like the kind of guy where they might have thought they could have kept the floor high with him if Eli Holstein wasn't working out. So I think this was a move that was more forward-facing, and I think it reflects kind of a belief in the long-term development of Mason Heinschel. To me, it kind of reads as a more patient move. I don't know if anyone expected him to throw for 300 yards and 4 touchdowns in his first start, but I would say certainly he's a little bit more ahead of schedule, and this is still kind of a long-term move for Pitt. It's a guy that they want to invest in for a long time.
Yeah, I looked at the condensed replay against BC, and it feels like those first 2 drives, it seemed like really short timing routes, first read, just get the ball out. Now, he did throw it very accurately. I mean, he was putting the ball, way towards a boundary, low for only where his receiver could catch a lot of these sort of passes. But then it feels like, towards the end of the first half, and then, those first few drives of the second half, like he seemed to kind of let it rip a little bit more. So, I guess the, cynic that's looking at this, if you're a Florida State fan, is like, well, let's see how he'll do in his second game. Everything was dink and dunk and very easy, but he doesn't seem like a game manager, quote unquote. He seems more like he wants to push the ball down the field, be a playmaker. Would you agree with that? Or is he more of a game manager?
Yeah, we didn't get many opportunities to see him kind of uncork a deep ball. But I think he can definitely do it. I mean, so he had a couple really nice throws downfield. One of them was kind of off of a scramble, off platform. He just lost one about 30 yards downfield into the corner of the end zone. Doesn't get caught, and then there's a penalty on Pitt that calls it back. He had another, I think, a 40-yard pass into the end zone that got caught, but called back for a holding penalty. I would kind of agree with your assessment. I think he did get a little bit more comfortable, and I think Pitt did open things up a little bit more for him later in the game. One of the more impressive things was how he was able to, when he scrambled, keep his eyes upfield. And even if he wasn't completing, a ball 20 yards downfield, I think he only had one completion and 3 attempts of 20 plus yards downfield. So he wasn't necessarily hunting those big plays, which I think actually was part of the reason why Eli Holstein wasn't super effective or as effective as he could have been in his few starts this year. But he was keeping his eyes downfield and looking for positive plays, not just looking to take off and run. So that was a really positive thing for Heinschel, and one of the reasons why I have some belief that this can be a little bit more sustainable. It's not, like you said, they did ease him into the game a little bit, but he showed a little bit of moxie and a little bit of creativity later in the game that was really encouraging.
Pitt, cradle of wide receiver development, Antonio Bryant, Larry Fitzgerald, Jordan Addison. I say that somewhat sarcastically, but obviously showing respect to how great those guys were. But I kind of sneaky like this receiving core for Pitt. Like they've got some go-getters that'll go get it. 50-50 is kind of like a 70-30, it feels like. Obviously what we've seen from Poppy Williams, who's a guy that's from Florida, a little bit more of an underneath kind of threat. How would you kind of grade and size up what Pitt's been able to, equip themselves with in terms of a passing attack?
Yeah, it was huge to, I think, get Kenny Johnson going last weekend. He had career highs in catches and yards, caught a touchdown pass. He's probably their best all-around receiver. Can catch the deep ball, but has some speed and has improved his abilities as a route runner. Poppy Williams has been more of a deep threat in the past, but he has really improved his ability to get yards after the catch. And but arguably, my favorite guy in that receiver room is Blue Hicks, the transfer from Louisville. Like you said, a super athletic guy, even though he's not super big, but has some speed, has some ability to go up and get a ball. This Cade Bell has a type, at receiver. He tends to be shorter guys with a bunch of speed and some short range quickness. Guys that can do stuff with the ball in their hands, taking short passes a long way. Hicks is one of those guys. I think Poppy Williams is one of those guys. And Kenny Johnson, I think, certainly could be that guy, even though they use him in a little bit of a different way. But they've also got Deuce Spann, a former Florida State Seminole himself, who is a bit of a different body type at 6'4" and I think north of 200 pounds. But like I said, Cade Bell has a type. They don't necessarily love, I think, throwing jump balls. I think the idea of the offense is to put guys in space and let them run after the catch. They don't want to be putting the ball in the air too much. I think, especially because the receivers are not huge per se. They don't have a ton of size at the position.
If you look at the conventional statistics, offensively, Pitt's super strong, but the rushing offense is lacking. 109th, averaging 116 yards per game. Des Reed, another guy from Florida, dynamic playmaker for the Panthers. Is this the game he finally does return? It was the last game he actually played in the backyard brawl, or did he see action after that?
No, it was the backyard brawl the last time we saw him. It was a little odd. I mean, you had to hear over the TV broadcast that he was going to be out for the remainder of the game. It happened really early. He went down with a lower body injury in the first quarter, I believe. So we haven't seen him since. I'm a little bit more optimistic about his chances to come back this week. That's not necessarily anything official. Just kind of reading the tea leaves a little bit. I think he has a chance to play in this game. They weren't particularly effective with him running the ball, even when he was in the lineup against Duquesne and Central Michigan. I really like the backups that they have, Joels Goff and Jakari and Turner. Those guys have some speed. They've got a little bit of wiggle. Goff gives them a little bit more size at 195 pounds. But they've really got to kind of block it up a little bit better. I think the receivers can afford to be a little bit of better blockers, and that's how they could spring some of these more explosive runs. Pitt's been fine as far as kind of like getting you 3 or 4 yards a pop, 3, 4, 5 yards a pop. But without Reed, they haven't really found the explosive plays that you would really like to. So obviously Reed, getting him back, even if he is on a snap count or something like that, just 20, 25 plays for him would be really huge, just because he is liable to turn any run, any touch into 70 yards and a touchdown at a given moment.
Yeah. Special teams threat too from Des Reed. Mm-hmm. Offensive line wise, Steven, looking at PFF, which is what I have to kind of lean on. It looks like 4 out of the 5 guys they have are grading at 65 or above, which is pretty darn solid. I think Florida State only has maybe one of their starting offensive linemen is graded above 65. Now, granted, they've got 2 guys I think that are at 64, Pettibone, and I think maybe Medley. But you talked about blocking things up better. Are they pass protection? Are they kind of up to the standard that needs to be had to be competitive in a game against a team like Florida State that has a lot of athletes, a lot of strong guys? How do you think the offense has fared with this offensive line?
They stacked up pretty well so far. I can't say that they faced, Florida State is definitely the best front seven I think that they will face so far. I think West Virginia was pretty good, even if the rest of that team is maybe not. I think Louisville had some talent there too as well, but they've passed, I think, a lot of their tests so far. I think the struggles on offense or in the passing game have not really been on protection. So I do think that they've kind of held up. They got banged up against Boston College, I will say. I think by the end of that game, they had 3 guys who were listed as backups on the 2-deep starting. One of them they expected, Ryan Coretta, is in for Keith Cueva, who had a season-ending injury against Louisville. It was a lower leg thing. But even then, they had to bring in Kendall Stanley at left tackle. Jeff Percy, who's the usual starter, went down with a lower body injury, and BJ Williams, who'd been their starting left guard for a few years now, or right guard, excuse me. Ever since his freshman year, he got a little banged up as well. I would expect Williams would play. We're unsure about Percy, but it'll be interesting to see how they kind of shuffle around and deal with some of these injuries or who's actually available, because they've been good so far. But once you start bringing in new guys and backups, it's kind of hard to predict what will happen.
Yeah, I forgot. I was watching a Louisville game and I saw Keith Cueva get carted off, and that was a definitely emotional kind of a moment in that game. And I think he might have actually been graded out the highest for the offensive lineman that they have had. Changing gears, going over to the defense, Steven, just, I think both of them might have been on Bruce Feldman's freaks list, Rasheem Biles and then Kyle Lewis. Does this defense is the heartbeat of that defense truly its linebacking core and those two guys specifically?
Well, I'd argue those are their two best players. But honestly, it's really been the entire front seven and the defensive line that I think has really driven what's a really good, in my opinion, this is a really good Pitt defense, a chance to be, I think, one of the top, 20 or 15 units in the country, quite honestly. But it really starts with the run defense, and that's how Pat Narduzzi likes it. That's how he draws it up. I think, in terms of success rate, they're top 5 in the country against the run. And that kind of is how it's what everything else is predicated on. So, Biles and Lewis, certainly a part of that. Those guys are also really good coverage linebackers, or they have been historically. But this defensive line, kind of led by the tackle group, Francis Brew, Sean Fitzsimmons, Nick James, and Isaiah Neal, who's even, been used as a defensive end. I think against Boston College, he was almost exclusively playing some defensive end, so he's a versatile guy as well. But I really love the front seven for this team. It's deep, at least on the defensive line. The linebackers, I'm curious to see what happens there, because going to be a hot day and they don't have a ton of depth. So they've got kind of star power at the top. I'd even throw Braylon Lovelace, the middle linebacker, in there as a really good player as well. But they had some injuries in the preseason that limited their depth. So I'm interested to see how the linebackers hold up against a team that I would assume, Florida State's going to run the ball a ton, because that's what they kind of do. And on a hot day, how Pitt is able to kind of keep up in that sense, because like I said, the run defense has been the strength of this team. And if they can't, get some stops on early downs against the run, kind of neutralizes the pass rush stuff that is also kind of a bread and butter for Pat Narduzzi's defenses.
Second in the country, Pitt, when it comes to rushing defense, allowing only 64.6 yards per game. So that's going to clearly be something to kind of watch for. But it seems they also are able to create negative plays, which probably feeds into the fact that they have a good rushing defense, Steven. Is it the aggression? Is it heavy blitzes, or is it kind of more of a sound technique football team that's been leading to some of these TFLs that put teams behind the chains and then make them get a little bit uncomfortable?
It's a lot of volume, I think. So, part of it is being good on early downs and, stopping teams on first or second down when they're running the ball. But it is also a lot of pressure. Randy Bates, they love to use not just these linebackers, but they've got a good edge rusher in Jimmy Scott, who hasn't quite, piled up the sack and tackle for loss numbers, but had 6.5 sacks a year ago. So I think they're looking to get him going, but Pitt is always going to bring pressure. They're going to bring extra linebackers, and they do it kind of at the expense of, help over top, help in the secondary. They're going to leave their DBs, their corners, their safeties on islands on pretty much every play. So they kind of count on the fact that if they're able to create some havoc in the backfield, if they're able to force teams into obvious passing downs, that on third down they can create some havoc and, count on college quarterbacks being college quarterbacks and making some mistakes. That's where, a lot of their turnovers will come from. But also that's just how they're going to try to beat you down to down is they got to try to win early and count on some mistakes late.
All right, just two more for you. So that secondary, going to probably have their hands full with a guy like Deuce Robinson and Squirrel White. Do they have a big body guy that can try to at least, match up with a guy like Deuce Robinson who's, pushing 6'6"?
They're going to certainly have to try. I think Rashad Battle is about 6'3", and Shadarian Harrison is 6'2", but not exactly a 6'6" guy or a 6'5" guy at cornerback on that team. So it's going to be tough. It's going to be a pretty critical matchup. Is Rashad Battle going to have to follow, Deuce Robinson around all day. I'm not really sure. But there's kind of no other option, right? Like I said, they're going to leave these guys on islands, and if they can't win, then Pitt's maybe in for a long day. Especially if they're not able to get pressure. But no, there's not really a body type that's going to be able to stack up to what Deuce Robinson brings, and Pitt's going to have to count on technique and the pass rush and everything to help those corners out. They've never really had super big dudes at cornerback. That's just kind of the guys that Pitt has had historically. Sometimes they're able to match up, but it was a long time ago. But I think back to when Pitt played Clemson in 2016. Deshaun Watson, he threw 3 picks in that game. Pitt won the game, but Watson threw for like 500 yards, and Mike Williams was just abusing poor Avonte Maddox and Ryan Lewis. And I don't know if Deuce Robinson is Mike Williams, but I could imagine.
I don't think Tommy Castellanos is going to be a Deshaun Watson though. So at least
that's the other thing. But yeah, no, there certainly isn't a body type that's going to match up there. So a little bit of hoping and a little bit of praying, but also that pass rush is going to be even more important this weekend.
Last one's a boring one, Steven, but just special teams wise, kick game, place kicking, punting. I mean, how's Pitt looked at? What do you think Pat Narduzzi's confidence level is if they've got to hit like a 49-yard field goal to win the game?
49-yarder, that's a really good question. So Pitt actually has a new place kicker this year. So you go from Ben Sauls, who, he told us that he would tell the offense, as soon as you get over midfield, you can feel confident that I'm going to get you points. And with a career long of 58 yards, kicking in Acrisure Stadium, which is notoriously a really hard place to kick for both pro and college kickers. Then you go to a true freshman, Trey Bukowski, who won the job out of training camp. I think a fairly big surprise as far as, special teams position battles go. He's kind of slowly gaining a lot of trust. They kind of try to keep it secret what his exact, what the exact edge of his range is. But I believe that he maybe hit from 47, I think, against Boston College. So they would feel, I think, pretty confident with Bukowski attempting something from 49 or 50 yards. But anything beyond that, I think would be a bit of a risk. I think they'd be more likely to go for it I think this year they are more likely to go for it on fourth downs, be a little bit more aggressive because you're dealing with a true freshman kicker, and you kind of never know with them. The rest of their special teams are really solid though. Their return units are really good. Their coverage units are really good. I think they grade out as far as, S&P plus, from ESPN or, some of the starting field position metrics. Like they've got really good special teams, and it started, really last year when they hired Jake Bernowski away from Miami of Ohio to coordinate the special teams. Pitt was not very good at special teams, kind of pre 2024. They had some good place kickers and some good punters and some good individual players, but this year and in 2024, really the entire units have been really markedly improved.
I don't know if any fan base has got a better feel for their opponent this coming weekend than Florida State fans. Thanks, Stephen. We really appreciate it. So check out Stephen Thompson over the Pittsburgh Post Gazette if you want even more information on the Panthers and what sort of challenges they present. Safe travels. Recommend Momo's Pizza. Their slices are gigantic. They're like the size of your head is what the tagline is. And if you need any other recs, just put out there on Twitter. I'm sure that the friendly folks at FSU Twitter would oblige and help you out. Thanks again, Stephen.
Thank you. I will take all those recommendations. Appreciate you having me.
The following message is brought to you by BetterHelp. October 10th is World Mental Health Day, and this year BetterHelp is saying, thank you, therapists. BetterHelp therapists have helped over 5 million people worldwide on their mental health journeys. That's millions of stories, millions of journeys, and behind every one is a therapist who showed up, listened, and helped someone take a step forward. Moments in therapy can change lives. This World Mental Health Day, BetterHelp is honoring those connections and the therapists who make them possible while showing how easy it is to get guidance from a licensed therapist online with BetterHelp. BetterHelp therapists work according to a strict code of conduct and are fully licensed in the United States. BetterHelp does the initial matching work for you so you can focus on your therapy goals. Their 12 plus years of experience and industry-leading match fulfillment rate means they typically get it right the first time. BetterHelp has served over 5 million people globally, and it works with an average rating of 4.9 out of 5 for a live session based on over 1.7 million client reviews. Listeners get 10% off their first month at betterhelp.com/warchant. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/warchant. All right, we're back. It's Wake Up Warchant, presented by Vitamin Energy, vitaminenergy.com, warchantbogo, your promo code. Thanks again to Stephen Thompson from the Pittsburgh Post Gazette, hopping on to talk about the Panthers. Of course, I'd like to double back to earlier in the show when you talked about, listen, if Alabama loses against a ranked, I'm sure they're ranked, right? Missouri? Yeah, they're 14th.
Yeah, 12th or 14th, yeah.
5-0, Missouri, 5-0. They're only ranked 14th. Imagine if we were 5-0 and only ranked 14th. The hell we would bring down on the nation. Anyways. But if, Alabama loses, then you're back in the DeBoer sucks. Where are we going? And it's like, yeah, man, it's probably not the best of examples because of where they were at when Nick Saban was just so unprecedented. But, they're right now trying to find their 5 best offensive linemen, which includes them bringing in a true freshman to play right tackle, Michael Carroll, who I think was the number 2 offensive lineman in this past class. A true freshman. So he played a significant amount of right tackle against Vanderbilt. They do have Keelan Russell, apologies, who was the number 1 quarterback in the country. He was from Duncanville, Texas. So they've got those kind of elite pieces, right? That you can, get good bones if we're talking about kind of a house. I do like the Desir twins. You like Boggs. You like Chroma. I don't want to say we need to see more from Chroma, but we're hitting the midpoint of the season, and if you're as special as we hoped, Dalvin kind of started turning it on at this point in 2014, but that's a really high
Dalvin.
bar. It's a really high bar. Maybe best running back in your program's history. Are there enough of those pieces to where, I'm not saying build super team. Ole Miss, they tried to build a super team last year, and they, coincidentally enough, might be better this year with quote-unquote lesser talent. They went and got a quarterback from Ferris State, man, and he's been pretty well for them. So is there enough bones here with what they have to add on, to not be a super team, but to eventually be a top 12 team? Because, man, Arizona State, Indiana, these teams can believe in where their direction is going right now. Kenny's developing quarterbacks. Signetti's got a really good offense. Their defensive line's apparently much improved. We're seeing programs that are, not just maybe not just a flash in the mail. You're actually building something in much more difficult circumstances than Florida State.
Yeah, I just think, honestly, man, it was Florida State was here a year ago, 2 years ago. They were one of the best teams in the country. That wasn't that long ago, and it wasn't unprecedented around here. I don't think it's hard to do to get top 12 caliber, and I genuinely think, man, I think they're top 12 caliber now. It's just they lost the Virginia game, but so did Louisville. And Virginia lost the game. Virginia should be 6-0. It's ridiculous they lost that NC State game in the manner they lost it. But Virginia's a good team, and they played pretty darn well in that game, and they got two costly turnovers, took advantage of 2 costly turnovers. They had 14 points off your turnovers, and they won the game. But I don't know, man. I hear what you're saying. My point to counter with the Alabama is right now, everybody says they're the best team in the SEC. A lot of people are saying that anyway. I've heard it multiple times. They had the one bad game. Ty Simpson is a Heisman winner, a Heisman front runner. They look great. It's okay, man, if they lose on Saturday, all that talk is gone. That's how tenuous it all is. That's how I don't know, paper mache it feels. Nothing is really foundational. It's all week to week. In with perception anyway. And I do think this program is in better shape than it was last year. Who could argue that? Better offense. I think it's got a good offense. It's got better players. It's got better coaches, and it's got better freshmen. So it's got better younger players competing and playing. So there is stuff to build upon if you keep stacking guys, you can tell I'm not a builder. Yeah, I'm trying to think of the correlation or the metaphor here. If you keep stacking bricks or pillars or columns, however you guys build things these days. By the way, how about cement? How about cement just being a liquid and then all of a sudden it's hard? How's that happen? What are we doing? Anybody? Can y'all explain cement to me? That doesn't make any sense. So I think there's some stuff to build here. I really do. And I brought it up last show or 2 shows ago. I brought it up on headlines. Like, if they go 8-4, 9-3, and they get a lot of these guys to run it back, they get the coaching staff to stay intact and evaluate better, recruit a little better, maybe actually develop an offensive lineman or 2 so you don't have to buy a whole new starting 5. You come back next year coming off a 9-win season, and let's say Tommy finishes strong. Deuce is Deuce. Pittman is Pittman. Cromall looks great. Your defense with the Desir twins and Kevin Wynn and maybe James Williams becomes a factor. Earl Little's coming back. Like you'll have some pieces. Jabril Rawls, I think, is a good player. You have some pieces where you would be like a preseason top 10 team and feel really good about things. Now, does that mean anything? No, ask Clemson. They were number 4 in the country. That's how tenuous it all is, Aslan. The number 1, number 2, and number 4 teams in the preseason poll. Listen to me now, folks.
Say it again,
1,
Corey.
2, and 4.
Where are they ranked now?
They're all unranked in October, the first week of October. The number 1, number 2, and number 4 preseason teams in the country are all unranked. That's incredible.
That's what Texas, Penn State, and Clemson?
Yes, and that shows you just how fluid it all is. That is not an excuse to suck, and it is not an excuse to be mediocre either. So I don't want to just sit here. Trust me, if they lose to Pitt, you're not going to be sitting. I'm not going to be sitting here telling you guys, if you just don't turn the ball over, and they're still better than they were last year. It's like, well, are they? Because it seems to me they're 1-3. The 2 gimme games don't count. They're 1-3. But that's a big leap to make because I don't think they're going to lose to Pitt. I think there's a chance they play really well, and I think they could go on a run.
They're 10-point favorite.
If they do,
that's crazy. That's a stinky line, I feel like. But
10.5. Yeah, it started out. It's already gone up a point. And so I think that I get why people are have no faith that this is the right coach, that this is the right that this is going in the right direction. I would just say it's easy to say that in October, just like Alabama fans said it in late August. DeBoer was already on the way out. Ryan Williams sucked. I saw all those messages and all those tweets. They were soft. Now everybody loves them. They're a pick to win the national championship after essentially 2 wins at Georgia because the Georgia kid drops the touchdown, and against Vanderbilt at home. Those are the 2 wins that now have Alabama right back in the national championship hunt. Again, I'm not saying they won't win the national championship. I'm not saying they're not really good. That's just how fluid and up and down and tenuous it all is. I think Florida State needs some good things to happen to it. It has not been a real win around here since August 30th. There just hasn't been a real win. Go beat a real team with real players, and then all of a sudden you start feeling pretty good about yourself again, and you're on your way to a 6-2 showdown in Death Valley where you're ranked, and you have real stakes again.
All right. I like it.
But
right.
it's a good point, man, about the NIL. Like I get I just don't think they're spending money. Like they are not poor. Like you can compare them to Miami, sure. I think Miami spends more than them. I think Texas Tech spends more than them. I'm not sure that anybody else spends that much more than Florida State. Certainly not in the ACC. And Mario has done great. He has recruited the lines of scrimmage very well, which is a clear deficiency with Mike Norvell. His offensive line recruiting has been an absolute joke. Defensive line recruiting has not been great either, but the offensive line recruiting is an absolute joke. They have not recruited an offensive lineman out of high school that has started for them since 2020. Yeah. Like, it is an embarrassment how bad they've been doing that. Well, he's got a new guy in there now. What if Herb Hand knows what he's doing?
I think
he's actually – I do too. And he's not just – he had to do what he had to do for his first year, but maybe these guys in practice that aren't playing right now are getting developed. and they could be something next year. And instead of having to go buy 4 or 5 new offensive linemen, you got to go buy 2. And then you can spend the rest of that money on something else. But I think if Norvell ends up getting fired, if it goes sideways this season and his career is over, he will look back on what happened on the offensive line, basically both lines of scrimmage, but certainly the offensive line, and realize just how inexcusable that all was. Cristobal, now I will say this, as good as Cristobal's been on the line of scrimmage, he also had to go spend millions upon millions of dollars for free agent quarterbacks. So, it's not like he's been infallible. They haven't, what was the last quarterback they developed? But, they did spend the money. And I'll say this, I don't think Florida State should have gone after Carson Beck. He wouldn't have fit this offense anyway.
No, clearly.
I'm not sure, he cost a lot of money. You didn't know how he's going to be health-wise. It's been a great fit for him. But as Jeff and Ira pointed out, it's also really appealing to these high-level free agent quarterbacks to go to a place where they know they're going to be protected and blocked for, and have people to throw to. That's big. Like, why would Cam Ward have gone to Tallahassee last year and thrown to who? Jaylen Brown? Ja'Kai? And Carson Beck this year, I mean, good grief. They gave him some dudes. But he's protected by some really good offensive linemen. So all of that to be said, man, yes, you want it to be better. I know we all want Florida State to be dominant, absolutely dominant, in top 5. And there's no excuse that Miami looks that good on the line of scrimmage and you don't. It was just 2 years ago you won your 3rd game in a row against them. It's this stuff flips quickly. You can't make referendums on rivalries in seasons based on one weekend. Yes, Miami is in a better place than you right now. We've all lived through it when it flips really quickly. And there is a chance that at this time next year, if things break a certain way, we're talking in October about Florida State being a top 5 team and Miami not having a quarterback. Who knows?
Again.
Yeah, so who knows? It's just it's hard to – it's really hard, man. It's hard. It's hard to 2-10 is obviously inexcusable. All these other things, it's just varying degrees of good and bad. Is Sarkisian when do they start calling for his head? And I don't think they will. But James Franklin, too, that's a crazy loss. It's a crazy loss. And he's apparently going to be on the hot seat if he loses another game. And then Signetti is apparently Vince Lombardi. It's such a crazy time to even talk about college football in the landscape. For Florida State, though, clearly they got to recruit better on the offensive line. But is that a Mike Norvell problem? Yes, it's a Mike Norvell problem. But was it an Alex Atkins problem first and foremost? And is Herb Hand changing that? And is Herb Hand going to develop some of these dudes? Is he going to get time to? I guess we shall see.
Yeah, it sounds like Sandman Thompson. Maybe he fills in for Luke, and that's one less guy you have to go shopping for. But at the same time, I just don't know what kind of, this is totally rhetorical, and we're going to wrap up here, but, what is the hometown discount? If just because you got recruited out of high school doesn't mean that you don't get paid from that revenue share. I don't even know, why you'd get paid less than that. So we recruited you out of high school. We're not going to pay you as much because we've been down with you since day one. You've been down with us since day one. We're going to give each other a discount because of that. I don't know how that's really how it all ends up working out anyways. But hopefully they do.
Yeah, I don't know. What did Reuben Bain get 2 years ago?
Yeah.
What was the going rate for a defensive end, a 5-star defensive end 2 years ago? I'm assuming Miami paid top dollar for that number 1 player in the country who's the offensive lineman, right? To me,
Jackson Cantwell kid. Yeah, he's coming in next year.
Yeah, next year. So, but is he going to start as a true freshman? I guess there's a chance.
Yeah. Alabama's doing it.
There's a chance, right?
Alabama's doing it right now, yeah.
So that helps, but it's I think the thinking there is let's just throw out a number, 1.5. Let's say you're going to give him 1.5 or 4 years for 6. The thought is, yes, because if he's really good and he's a freshman All-American, he could go on the free agent market and get twice that much somewhere else, but maybe he does feel more beholden to you because you gave him that money early. Or maybe you signed him to a long-term contract. Who knows how any of this stuff works anymore. Yeah. I do think getting him on campus as freshman is a big deal because, as we pointed out repeatedly, the really good offensive linemen kind of stay home. They stay where they started, typically. Not all the time, but typically. Luke Potebone left. I think Luke's probably your best guy. I don't know what the grades are. Maybe Pettis was too, but Luke is probably your best guy. But he left because the coach got fired. He wouldn't have left otherwise. So I just think these guys typically stay where they start, and you've got to start better on the offensive line. You can't, because they're going to do it again. They're, unless they're developing these guys, which they very well might be, they have to go back in the portal and get 3 more starters. And that's not a great place to start when you might need a quarterback, maybe not. You might need another wide receiver. You're going to need some more running backs. Like, there's other stuff you got to go get. You'd like to have offensive linemen that you could develop and save some money there. But they have not developed. They have not developed an offensive lineman. Who was it, Aslan? Was it
Scott.
Darius and Rob Scott in 2020?
Yeah.
That's incredible.
That this staff recruited. Darius was a Taggart holdover.
Oh, that's right. I mean, that's
Maurice
incredible.
Too.
And Maurice too, right?
Yeah.
That's unbelievable. That's an unbelievable, inexplicable miss rate. And hopefully Herb Hand is changing that. But we won't see the fruits of that until next year. But hopefully we do see the fruits of it.
Hang in there, everybody. Hang in there. Let's see if Julian got back in the mix. Nope, he did not. Did
he play? Oh, you're saying did he play on Saturday?
Yeah, no, he did not. How about that? I think Jerry Neuheisel's got more wins against top 5 teams, as many wins against top 5 teams as Mike Norvell.
That can't be true.
What
was LSU when he beat them? And what was North Carolina when he beat them?
I think that's the only one. I don't think LSU was top 5. They were like top 10, but I don't think they were top 5.
Oh, well.
I didn't do a big deep dive on it because it'd be totally obnoxious. But just, I like being obnoxious every now and then. Yeah, so
I think they're
first 3 games and hasn't played 17 against Northwestern, and that's been curtains so far.
Yeah, man. So that's a bummer too. So again, you just find some guys that can play up front. Yeah. Find some guys that can play up front.
I think Terrence Ferguson's been playing for Syracuse, but they have not been looking great ever since they lost their quarterback. But
he was a portal guy too, right?
Yeah, he was. Yeah, you're right.
I just want to reiterate again. I try not. I don't want people to think I'm a homer and that Norvell deserves no blame, and that I'm not going to be, Bobby Bowden at the end of his tenure. He's like, hey, half the teams lose every Saturday. I'm not about that. My standard is y'all's standard. My first game I went to was 1982. I've lived through all of it, and I've been to all the big ones. As a fan, as a kid, as an adult, as a journalist, I've covered all of them. I love when they're good. I desperately want them to be good, and I hate it when they're bad. I just try to add a little realism and pragmatism because we can get so over the top and reactionary about one loss, as if all these games are played in a vacuum and we don't have peripheral vision to see what's going around the rest of the country, or the rest of the state for that matter. Right now it sucks because your rival is undefeated at number 2 in the country. How must it have looked for Miami 2 years ago, when their rival was 13-0, had beat them for a 3rd straight time, it was about to go play in the playoffs until, whoops, they got snubbed. You know what I mean? Like, Miami fans were in this spot very, very recently.
Yeah.
So the point is it can turn around. I've not given up on this staff. I certainly will never give up on this program, and I haven't given up on this season. Like, they might have already played their 3 toughest games of the season. There is a very good chance, actually, they've already played their 3 toughest games of the season, save for maybe Clemson. I just don't think Florida's offense is good enough. They're certainly good enough to beat Florida State. I'm just saying we don't even know what that team will look like at the end of the year.
Fair.
So there is a real chance that you've gone through your 3-game gauntlet and gone 1-2. And now it's set up for a nice little run where you can finish off 7-0 and 6 or 6-1. And if you do that, everything is on the table. Maybe not the playoffs, but about building. And the recruiting class you signed could be a good one. These coaches I trust to evaluate at a much higher level, just by, as we've talked about, the guys that are already on the field now as true freshmen. That wasn't a highly ranked recruiting class. Some of these guys can really play. These guys, I think, know what they're doing. They know what they're looking for and what makes good football players. I trust them. if you can build on this thing and get to 8 or 9 wins or 10 wins, and you can keep this staff intact and keep your good players around for another year and just add some pieces, next year, even if it doesn't happen this year, you were absolutely a playoff caliber team. And then you just keep stacking it. And then the year after that, you're a playoff caliber team. And then the year after that, too. Hopefully. That's pie in the sky. It's wishful thinking, but it's also not just absolutely can't happen thinking. It can't happen. It's just 2024, I think, just completely disillusioned us of what this coach is, or maybe it opened our eyes up. Depends on how you look at it, or what this program can be with him at the helm. It's not that I'm necessarily a believer in Mike Norvell as a recruiter or an evaluator. I am a believer in the guys that he has now on staff. And I know that he can put together a team that can win a lot of games because I've seen it. It happened very recently. So don't give up hope, everyone. Yeah. Don't give up hope. It might be turning right now. This Saturday might be the start of a brand new life for all of us.
Yeah. Bamboo shooting.
Or they might lose, and I'll be calling for his head on Sunday.
5 days late or so. But shout out to all the folks that we saw over the Corner Pocket Bar and Grill last week. Hope we see a lot of new faces. And some of the old faces. We love everybody who comes out there. Shout out to Greg and Emma. I met a Dayron and Nick. Good energy from those guys. Dylan, Keith, John, Todd, Al from Clewiston, South Central Florida. Al was very energetic. Matt and Kim, married couple, great folks. They were class like 93, I think. Jeff and Jordan. Jeff was the guy, Corey, that had like the teal suit on. Guy looked sharp. Yeah. And their cousin Alex. Charlie James, 2 dudes I saw on the street whose names I did not get as I was leaving the tailgate on Saturday. And then on the way back home, Abby and I stopped at Momo's. And this gentleman named by the name of Nick was like, congrats on the engagement, guys. It was really
nice.
Very nice. Very nice. So see more of you folks out there on Friday. Do you have any other shout-outs, Corey, or did I handle it for everybody? Got everybody, I think.
Yeah, I think I had I'm imbibed a little bit too much because I have a lot of names and a lot of descriptions, but they don't make sense to me anymore. I have Dave, and then I have just next to him billiards. But Dave, shout out. I don't know what that means. Bob was the band guy. I'm not sure what that means. Maybe he was in the Marching Chiefs. Oh, no, I know who it was. It's all coming back to me. Anyway, Bob, you're the man. I do remember now. He did have something to do with the Marching Chiefs. Dave, Phil and Kristen, very nice people. And then we have Derek from Tampa, Jason from Greenville, and then my man John, who was a really cool story. He came up to me. I was sitting there on Friday night, kind of late. He came up to me, was very, very polite. He's a Marine from New Orleans that drove over that day for the game, and then came up to Corner Pocket and was very excited that I was still there, and actually came by the tailgate on Saturday as well. Nice. And very polite. Stephanie gave him the pin drop where we were. He came over. It was really cool to see him. And again, if you're at Corner Pocket, please come up and say hello. That's literally, I would probably be there anyway. But that's why I'm there, is to say hello and talk the Noles some. Hopefully it'll be good, fun stuff to talk about. Well, maybe not Friday as we lead into the game. But even still, come up and say hello. You're very much and Jackie and her family. Jackie's the hardcore fan from Tampa. Oh. Her sister, I don't know if I told you this story, broke her leg storming the field against Alabama. Oh, ouch. Isn't that rough? Yes. Like, jumped down. I think she not only broke her leg, I think her name is Haley, broke her leg and tore her knee jumping down on the field. I shouldn't laugh. I apologize.
No,
what a way to do it, though.
It's brutal, man. It's because you're jumping onto concrete. You're not jumping onto grass. You're jumping on to concrete from like 7.5 feet up. It's
and
crazy.
You don't, as a human being, it's just not that far a fall. You're like, there's no way this is going to be. And I've done it, and it sends shockwaves up here. Yeah. It's like it just rattles you, and that's 7 feet. So, yes, I think she was when we saw her, she had a knee brace on. I think she had surgery, but hopefully she's on the mend. She was at the game, though. She came to the Miami game. Nice. So diehard fans there. Oh, and so just, again, thank you, everyone, for coming and say hello. I try to remember names. I try to write it all down the best I can, as Aslan does. But I did want to say, before we go real quick, there was some news on Tuesday, Aslan, about the transfer window being officially approved. January 2nd to January 14th. One window, and those are the days.
Nice.
January 2nd to January 14th.
I see what Mike's trying to do. Like, we don't need playoffs. We need to get in the portal. Focus on the portal.
Right.
Focus on the portal. All right, well, that's good.
So how does that remind me again? So that's when they can enter, or that's when they have to enter, or that's when they start committing? Like, nobody can commit, I guess, until January 2nd. Is that how I'm supposed to read it? It's like that's like the national signing day?
Yeah, I don't think you can officially enter until then. And then, again, though,
so then there's no way you could officially commit, right, until then?
Right.
We all know how it works, man. It's Christmas break. All these kids are going to know where they're going by December 10th probably, but I'm just saying they won't officially enter that portal till the 2nd.
This is what I want from the window, man. Make the window a window. I mean, the thing is, you can still, as long as you get your name in there, you could probably leave in March, I think, still. It's like you have 2 weeks to put your name in, but maybe this new window is like you have to commit and sign your papers with another school. That would be awesome. That would be really, really awesome.
It would be, man, I started thinking about it. I'm like, man, and again, I'm hoping Florida State is coming off a 9-win season, and they're attractive, and they're stacking the Braden Fists and the Keon Coleman's of the world, like they did the last time they had a good season. But it'll be like Christmas every day. You know what I mean? It's like, who are they going to get today? It's deciding day for Malachi Toney. He just put on a Florida State hat. That's probably not happening, but you know what I mean? Like, I think that'll make it a really fun time. And it's also much better for the coaches, man. They can concentrate on high school recruiting in December. The other teams that are playing bowl games or playing playoff games can get ready for those games. They can also play the bowl games, hopefully, with those kids that even if they think they're leaving or know they're leaving, they'll try to be showing out for their prospective teams. And these bowl games can get back to feeling like bowl games again. And because most of the portal won't open until after the bowl games are over, as opposed to what it's been the last 3 years, which is absolute mayhem. So hopefully it kind of steadies and calms the offseason a little bit.
Also, they're going to, effective immediately, starting 5 days after a new head coach is hired or announced, players will have a 15-day window to enter their names in the portal. Currently, you had a 30-day window to enter the portal immediately after the coaching change, which, Virginia Tech's been having a whole bunch of defections.
Yeah,
because
30 days is nuts.
Yeah.
You need a whole month to think about it? Yeah. Come on, man. 2 weeks is plenty. It should actually be 5 days.
Yeah. No clarification.
If you're not in the portal in 5 days, you're done. You can stay for the rest of the semester.
Yeah. No clarification in the reporting as to whether or not that window means you have to commit by then. But I think it's still as long as you put your name in there by that date, you can end up committing in March or whatever. So, but I don't know. Like you'll be at your previous school, probably having to pay for your way. You're not going to be on scholarship anymore if you enter the portal, I would think. So,
yeah.
Let's get this thing fixed. The sport, that is. Live show coming your way 6 p.m. Before then, Jeff Cameron show 1 to 4 o'clock. Give that a gander. Give it a look-see. And we'll speak to Mike Norvell at about 11:45 probably, if I'd have to guess. But anyways, we get Norvell and some players on Wednesday. We'll have the full breakdown of that over at warchant.com. Get involved, everybody. He's Corey Maslow. Thanks for listening to Wake Up Warchant, presented by Vitamin Energy, vitaminenergy.com. WarchantBOGO, your promo code.